I, 52 male, and my ex, Tracy, 50 female, have 3 children. Michael, 28 male, Linda, 25 female, and Victoria, 23 female. We split because Tracy had an affair with Stan, 55 male, to whom she's now married. We never shared the reason for the divorce with the kids, as I didn't want them to blame either of us. This backfired, as the kids saw their mom move out of the house into a small apartment, and I kept living in the house and remarried 2 years after the divorce. So they saw me as the bad guy. Stan and Tracy let them do whatever they wanted, and I had to be the disciplinarian who ensured homework was done, appointments were made, and deadlines were met. My 2 oldest eventually realized that I was not the bad guy. My son, when he found out that his mother had put nothing away for college for him, as outlined in our divorce decree, and told him to take out loans. My daughter, when she realized that her grades were going to keep her out of her desired program in school. My youngest never came around, so it was a surprise when her boyfriend asked me for my blessing to ask for her hand. When I expressed that I didn't think she'd care about my blessing, he said she insisted on it. She began spending time with me, being polite to my wife, and it felt wonderful to have my daughter back. So I went with them to book the venue, and they'll be getting married next summer. I paid the deposit and the first installment. I noticed that she was becoming less communicative again recently, ignoring my text or giving one-word replies and not coming over as much. On Monday, my son sent me a post on Instagram. My youngest had a weekend engagement party to which I wasn't invited. One of the photos was of her with Stan, and it read, "Anyone can be a father. It takes a real man to be a dad. This amazing guy has been my dad for 15 years, even though he didn't have to be. I'm blessed to have him walk me down the aisle next year. Hashtag daddy's girl. Hashtag future Mrs. X." My kids had everything their entire lives because I never let them go without. Even when they wouldn't talk to me, I made sure their needs were met. So I texted Tracy to ask why I wasn't included. She replied that Victoria didn't want my wife there because she wanted a drama-free day. My wife has never started drama in her life, so I asked if Stan and I would both be walking her down the aisle. Tracy didn't respond, but Victoria called me to ask me what my problem was. I repeated my question, and she replied that no, Stan, her dad, would be walking her down the aisle. I told her if that's what she wanted, I would be okay with it. I told her to let Stan know the next payment for the wedding is due in 3 months. Stan and Tracy do not have the money for this wedding and think I'm being an idiot. Linda says if I do this, Victoria will never speak to me again. Michael's on my side. Not the idiot. If you aren't her dad, then why would you pay for the wedding? And here's a novel idea. The bride and groom can pay for the wedding instead of the parents. And maybe it's time you told your kids the real reason behind the divorce. Don't hide things from your kids when you divorce. As a kid whose parents did this, it leads to nothing but badness. Victoria strategically resumed contact for a brief period to ensure OP pays towards the wedding, the same one in which her dad, Stan, will walk her down the aisle. She's a bad egg, and it would be a good thing if she stops talking to OP after this. Can OP cancel the venue and get a refund? If yes, please do. If the OP tells his kid the real reason behind the divorce, it may not end as he hopes. If she even chooses to believe it, Victoria might feel betrayed by all of her parents. Victoria has decided that she's a victim here. Unfortunately, some people find it easier to be a victim than to be responsible for their own choices in life. Disagree. The truth about your divorce was ugly and unflattering to Tracy, so you agreed to hide it forever, OP. Not just till the kids got grown, but forever. That decision has bitten you in the butt and cost you your relationship with at least one of your adult kids. Please sit down with Linda and Michael and tell them the truth about the divorce. My husband, 36, and I, 28 female, have been together for 6 years, married almost 3. Over the past couple of months, I've raised the topic of a time frame for having children, which he always brushes off. When I confronted him recently about this dismissive behavior, he told me that having children would be too much work for him, e.g. doesn't want to change diapers, tend to a crying baby at 3 a.m., etc. The only way he would agree to it is if he could have a second wife to help. He's Muslim and this is allowed in Islam, or if we adopted older children, preteen to teen, because they're more independent and can do fun things with him, like play video games. I would not agree with this, because I don't think wanting a gaming partner is the right reason to adopt a child. I told him I had no intention of agreeing to this second wife plan either, and he stated that I'm not being realistic about how hard it is to raise children, and I want him to be miserable. I asked him why he never told me he wanted a second wife before. I would have never married him if I knew, and he said that it only became a necessity for him when I started to bring up having kids. He claims that the first month we met, I had told him I didn't want kids. I don't recall that as it's been years, but I had expressed interest several times over the years, even before we got married. So it's evident that even if that was something I said once, I've changed my mind. I explained to him that if he's not on board with raising children in a monogamous relationship where he's an active parent, the only option would be for me to file for divorce. He says he doesn't want to get divorced and would fight it, and that I should agree to one of the two options he posed. So, am I the idiot? I don't want to get divorced, but I believe he wants another partner and is just using the kids as an excuse. Not the idiot. This is just madness. Don't have babies with this man. The kids are his excuse for the second wife, which sounds like his ultimate goal. So send them the divorce papers and get you a better man. Wow. Offer to get a second husband who wants to have children, and he won't have to worry about childcare at all. What if the second wife wants her kid as well? It just makes more sense to add another man versus another woman. Since his reason is that kids are too much work for two people, he should snap that compromise right up. Since it's only about extra help and not at all about misogyny. He sounds immature and selfish. I would divorce him. Raising kids is hard, but that doesn't mean you get a second spouse to make up for him not wanting to take care of his children. He doesn't want to be a parent if he thinks it's too much work for him. And honestly, I wouldn't want kids with a partner that considers them an inconvenience. Not everyone's meant to be a parent, and that's okay. But telling you to agree to a second wife or adopt older children because he doesn't want to take care of a baby is not okay. Not the idiot, OP. Get out of that marriage. It sounds exhausting. My sister and I are both pregnant at the same time. She's 30 and I'm 24. She has a toddler daughter and is expecting a boy this time. She announced her son's name in April and told everyone that the name was set in stone, so feel free to use the name in gifts and stuff if you want. I didn't announce our daughter's name officially yet. Some people know just because I was close enough to them and we were talking names. My sister asked me outright and I told her, it's Oceana, and she was not impressed at all. She asked me what was wrong with a name like Elizabeth, or maybe a little Beatrice or Margaret. I told her nothing for those who like those names, but they're not for my husband or me. She then said there's always Emily, Haley, Anna, and Marie. I told her to stop, that we knew our girl's name before we even knew she was a girl, and it wasn't going to change for her. She went into a Facebook mommy group, shared the name with moms and moms-to-be in there, and wanted people to help her figure out how to change my mind. But instead, she went on a long rant about how my taste in names is terrible, and how she's shocked I would like a name like this, and that I'm ruining my child's life. I'm rejecting all the beautiful, lovely names of the last several years, and that her Agatha and Eugene will be envied and hated by my child and all future kids of mine for their gorgeous names. Someone I know in the group sent me screenshots of the post. She made sure the post stayed up for over a week with all her complaints and rantings. She also had some people more than willing to help. The last time I saw her was 3 weeks ago, and she gave me more names to consider: Rosemary, Vivian, Francesca, Lillian, Martha, Geraldine, etc. I rolled my eyes and told her to focus on her own kids' names instead of mine, and that she needed to get over it and stop ranting to the world. She told me not to be so dismissive of her, and that I insulted her kids' names, which I did not. I just told her to focus on them. She told me I shouldn't want to name my kids something her family would hate. She told me I was rude to her, and that she had genuine concerns. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It's not like you're calling your daughter Caligula or MILF, two kids I know. Oceana is unusual, but not awful or offensive. If she doesn't like it, then your daughter could choose to go by Anna, which isn't short for anything. and so no one will think to ask. Your sister needs to butt out. While I'm not a fan of Oceana, I find it better than Agatha or Eugene. Everyone has different naming styles. She should have not gone on the group, shamed you for knowing it would get back to you, and then accused you of insulting her. I'm not sure if this is how your sister typically behaves, or maybe she really was trying to help, but I think she overstepped. She had her chance to name her daughter, and now it's yours. Names are a you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's just no way to know what your kid would like. I had an insanely common name, 4 other kids in my grade alone at a small school, and I hated it just for its commonness. So pick what makes you happy, but be prepared to support them if they want a name change later in life. I have many grandchildren, but this is about the oldest ones, Jake 18 and Maya 18. They're cousins, not siblings. 18th birthdays are very important in our family, so for Jake's 18th birthday, I told him I would buy him whatever he wanted, as long as it's reasonable, of course. He told me he needed a new phone, so I bought one for him, costing me around $1,000. I also encouraged him to choose other gifts, but he said it was enough. For Maya's 18th birthday, I did the same thing and told her to choose whatever she wanted. She gave me a list of what she wanted, and it cost me about $7,000. I was a bit unsure whether I should buy them, but decided it would be unfair if I didn't buy them because Jake had the same offer and chose not to get anything else. Jake's father, my son, was very angry at Maya's birthday. He said I'm showing favoritism. I tried to explain that I was not because Jake had the same offer. He argued that I raised Maya, her parents worked a lot, and I was basically her babysitter, while I didn't have as much contact with Jake. His mom was a stay-at-home mom, so naturally, Maya would be closer to me, and it would be easier for her to ask me for things. You are the idiot. While you gave them a choice, which is nice, you should have decided that each one of them would get an equal value of gifts. If you spent $1,000 on one, that should have been the cap for the other. No one told you you had to buy all the gifts on Maya's list. You made that choice. I agree it should be equal, but it sits wrong with me to call Grandma an idiot for being a generous gifter. You can see she feels confused and conflicted about what the right thing to do is. She gave both grandkids whatever they asked for, in the thousands of dollars, which is incredibly generous. I don't think she thought through how to offset differential, greed, frankly, from her grandkids. If she wanted to go all out and make it right, she could gift the grandson $6,000 in cash to even the score, but that seems a bit excessive. OP literally punished Jake for not being greedy. I do wonder if Maya even expected everything on her list, or if she just gave OP a list of options. If she did, that is greedy. Who spends $7,000 for a birthday? That's college money. I don't fault the grandma for going by what her granddaughter put on her list. Her grandson was offered that and he chose not to. The amount of money spent is ridiculous. Sorry, Grandma, you are way overspending. It's crazy a child would expect to get expensive gifts like that. My mom would have slapped me upside my head for being greedy. Not the idiot. 2 things. Number 1, you gave both grandchildren a choice to buy whatever they wanted, and even encouraged your grandson to buy more, but he didn't want to. I would recommend you still reach out to your grandson and make sure he isn't upset with you, to be sure. Number 2, I've seen so many comments saying that you shouldn't be spending the money on your granddaughter. If you have the money and are willing to spend it on your grandchildren, then it's nobody else's business. This is the most reasonable response. She's not the idiot for spending $7,000 on her grandkid. It seems people are jealous that she was able to spend $7,000 on one kid. But reach out to Jake to see if he's okay and doesn't feel a particular way. I, 37 female, have 4 children and a husband. All of my children are school-aged, and my husband is 39. I make all of their lunches for the next day for them. It's usually a PB&J, chips, crackers, and a yogurt daily. It's cheap and easy and they all like it. Sometimes if we have takeout or pizza or something the night before, and the member didn't finish their portion, they'll get it in their lunch the next day. This is especially the case for my younger one, who doesn't eat much at once, and will likely be the case for my youngest as she eats the same way. Additionally, sometimes I'll use a different jelly, or crunchy peanut butter with creamy honey instead of jelly, or a sub with a turkey and cheese. Plus, the side is switched up regularly, and the yogurt flavor is always different. So there's a lot of variety within a sandwich, side, and yogurt. That said, I understand that having the same thing over and over can get boring. If I'm asked to sub an item and I can, I will. This is why when my oldest started complaining about lunches being boring, in that complaining tone kids use, I wasn't hurt. I asked what he'd like instead, and he shrugged and said something not boring. At this point, my husband and second oldest joined, echoing the sentiment with no solutions. At this point, I was nearly crying, which I don't do in front of my kids, but hearing my husband say these things without any solutions hurt. I said fine. If they find my lunches so boring, then they don't have to eat them, and I won't make them anymore. They're all welcome and old enough to make their own lunches, and I'll just make them for my two youngest. Or my oldest kids can get school lunches, something they're vehemently against, saying the meals are gross. As I know these menus are different every day, offering some variety. They immediately backtracked on their statements, but I stood firm. They're all old enough to make their own lunches. Just tell me if you decide you need lunch money. My older kids grumbled, but they managed to make their own sandwiches. My husband was the biggest child of them all, complaining that the kids have the option of school lunch, and that the school can't and won't let a kid go hungry, but work doesn't give a damn if he eats. I just kissed his cheek and said that there's the bread and peanut butter in the kitchen, and he can also drive to McDonald's and get something he wants. He continued to get angry and slept in the basement last night. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. What gets me is that none of them even had any suggestions. You were willing to accommodate their whining, and instead of anything constructive, only got complaints? I would feel taken for granted, and I would also not want to do entirely unappreciated labor. Good for you. Plus the kids I get. Kids are notorious for not understanding the effort things take. But husband? He should know better. Taking it out on you is his bad. I'm sorry, I'm finding it highly amusing that a grown man slept in the basement because he can't take 30 seconds to make a PB&J. I made lunches for my family and the two guys that worked with my husband. It saved everyone time and money. You could make a suggestion, but no complaints. No one ever complains, and I got thanked. I wouldn't make Sir Whiny Pants anything either. The husband does know better. That's why he's angry and trying to force OP back into making lunches by showing his displeasure. But OP would be unwise to let that power play be successful. I'm tired of reading about grown men who act like they can't do basic tasks. I don't understand why anyone would put up with this long term.